The Logan Paul vs. Coffeezilla lawsuit just took a wild turn. The FBI is now part of the conversation. Logan Paul has tried to seal his entire deposition transcript, while Coffeezilla says that's illegal, and both sides are accusing each other of weaponizing the courts. This lawsuit's kind of going under the radar with people covering it, so I figured why not make this video. It's chaos. Remember, this is all from Logan Paul having the CryptoZoo scandal of allegedly scamming his fans, and Coffeezilla making videos on it, getting millions and millions of views, and he said, "F you, that's defamation."
So this is Cup Boys. Shout out to him for making this video in such short notice. It was published 1 day ago. And basically this whole video is Logan Paul trying to hide his lawsuit deposition from the public. Welcome back to the Tea Drop, where we don't do soft takes, we don't do influence PRs, and we definitely don't ignore some paperwork, which he's going to help me with. Strong brew, no soft behavior. Today is the CryptoZoo lawsuit saga continuing. As you know, I covered this briefly a few weeks ago, and what I thought was closed no longer is true. It just took a turn I did not have on my bingo card for 2026. The FBI is now part of the conversation, at least according to what's being argued in the court filings. But if you're new here, this goes all the way back to the CryptoZoo scandal. Allegations that fans were misled and money was lost in Coffeezilla's reporting that of this whole CryptoZoo going mega viral to the point that Logan Paul sues Coffeezilla for defamation after previously thanking him for bringing the situation to light. Yes, that part is weird, but it is a thing that's happening. This update matters because this case is no longer just Logan versus Coffee. Now we're talking about attempts to seal Logan's deposition from the public, accusations of sharing discovery with the FBI, claims of weaponizing courts, and Coffeezilla trying to spread responsibility across other media outlets and CryptoZoo partners. This is turning into a legal tug of war over who controls the narrative. Let's continue.
Even after thanking him for making the videos. Very bizarre. Hit subscribe, let's go. All right, here we go. We got defense motion for leave to designate responsible third parties.
Okay.
So Coffeezilla is Steven. Coffeezilla's team filed this. They give the background, he's an online journalist. Logan Paul's a YouTube celebrity and
So Coffeezilla is an online journalist. Is he like a legit journalist, or people that say they're journalists? I know a bit about Coffeezilla to this case, but I don't know him generally. That's how out of touch I am with the internet world. But anyway, let's continue. Logan Paul is a YouTube celebrity and WWE wrestler. He's also a podcaster, I guess.
WWE wrestler. Paul acknowledges himself that his career has not been entirely free from controversy. Yeah, to say the least.
He is a legit one. Okay. Oh, Coffee. Well, he's busy covering bigger things. He's gonna tackle down Misfit and everyone else. Cup Boys is legit. Oh no, I was talking about Coffeezilla. So Coffeezilla is legit and Cup Boys is legit. This guy got documents and everything. Anyway,
2017, Paul became the most hated person in the world after he
published
a video on
2017.
YouTube
Oh yeah.
of you know what? Remember?
Does anyone remember what he did in 2017? If not, just search Logan Paul Japan. You can figure out the pieces after that, but that pretty much destroyed him to the point that The Rock didn't even want to talk to him. I'm very curious of what his relationship is with The Rock now that he's in the WWE, but then again, The Rock is barely there to begin with. So anyway,
Paul's brand and reputation was in tatters. He made international headlines. They're showing a Vanity Fair, a BBC, a bunch of links of other big news outlets covering.
Yo, this document is freaking beautiful. It has clips and everything.
Logan Paul being a scumbag.
I love organization.
Especially. And then media on his pump and dump crypto scam bullshit subjected Paul to more scrutiny. So what I think this document is so far, Coffeezilla's team is just saying it's not just us that have spoken negatively about Logan. It's been other media outlets. That's what they're saying. New York Times, how influencers hype crypto without disclosing their financial ties, and his face. Jesus Christ, bro. Logan Paul accused of participating in multiple crypto pump and dump, Dixerto or whatever. The thank you Coffeezilla video he put up, remember? And then also, the war is not with coffee. In fact, I'm grateful he brought this to light. I will be taking accountability and apologizing. Turned around and sues him. BBC.
So yeah, that was the state. That was the I guess the tweet that he put out, thanking Coffeezilla for pointing out the issue with his own company. And he makes this video statement, which we went over in the last video I did of CryptoZoo, but then he basically sues him afterwards.
The article, Business Insider, Rolling Stone, Economic Times, 10% compensation for CryptoZoo victims, partial refund headlines everywhere. Paul's role in CryptoZoo leads to criminal investigations and class action lawsuit, which the lawsuit actually got thrown out, the class action, but I think they refiled it. I think Logan posted celebrating recently that his lawsuit got dropped, the class action against him with all the CryptoZoo victims, or there was at least I think like 30 or 40 or something like that. That got thrown out by a judge, but then they just had to change a few things in it and sue him again. And I think that's what they did already. Paul blames his.
Yeah, so that was what I covered the last time, that it got thrown out, and he was happy about it. He found out on his wedding day that it got thrown out, by the way. But yeah, they changed the format, and that was where I left off the last video, that the people were going to try to refile it. So it looks like they're keep going forward, and this is probably just going to help fuel it even more. So the first major piece Coffeezilla side files was basically a move that says, if Logan is claiming his reputation was harmed. So let's take a look.
Management team. Paul lost hundreds of thousands of dollars due to the people he trusted. The media and Paul's management team are responsible for some, if not all, of Paul's claimed reputational harm. In June of 24, Paul strategically filed this lawsuit with the twin goals of obtaining discovery to defend himself in the pending criminal and civil proceedings. Paul's first focus was obtaining Coffeezilla's communications with the government and with lawyers in the class action lawsuit. 2, punishing Coffeezilla for exposing Paul's cryptocurrency scam, as Paul confirmed in text messages with his friends back in December 22. All right, here's the important part of this document. Although Paul claims Coffeezilla's statements in June 23 and January 24 caused injury to Paul's reputation, the jury should be able to attribute the portion of any alleged reputational harm that was caused by Coffeezilla and that portion that was caused by other larger media outlets also covering the CryptoZoo scandal. Likewise, and particularly because Paul is asking another jury to hold Greenbaum and Ibanez, the two dudes that were part of his team that were scumbags, responsible for Paul's reputational injury in the class action, the jury here should also be able to apportion responsibility to those two. So Coffeezilla is essentially like, it's not just me that the jury should be able to think about caused all this. There's other people that caused this, other media outlets and the people on Logan's team, essentially. In terms of the reputational harm or whatever, some people just say it's Coffeezilla just reporting the facts.
Yeah, it's not like he thought of these things in the air. He did his research. As everyone said in the chat, he's a legit journalist. He did thorough research before he put that video out. It's just Logan Paul's mad that he got caught. If, like I said, if Logan Paul is claiming his reputation was harmed by Coffeezilla's statements, then the jury should also consider the harm caused by other parties. What that means translation-wise, even if I'm responsible for some impact, you can't pin everything on me. And Coffee's team points out at the obvious, multiple major outlets covered the CryptoZoo story and Logan's prior controversies, which is many before this. So they're building up an argument that the public narrative about Logan wasn't created by one YouTuber. And if damages are being claimed, you need to apportion what came from where. So it's not just it's not just Coffeezilla that talked about this. Many outlets did. Many. So why is he going after everyone else?
Would disagree. They're not facts. It was targeted, and if you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe. I appreciate the support. Back to the video, boys. In the last video I made about this, Logan
I should do that. You see how quick he was?
trying to get communications with Coffeezilla's like editor team of all these videos, remember? The judge ruled on this and he says plaintiff's
Now here's where it gets a little spicy.
motion to compel production of communications to and from Harry Bag. That's the craziest name on earth. Harry Bag. This guy's parents did not do him any favors. And
No,
Ed, these are
didn't.
people that are on Coffeezilla's team, like editors or whatever, behind the scenes making these videos with Coffeezilla. Denied without prejudice. The court finds that the plaintiff has not established that, in this instance, the interest of the party subpoena the information outweighs the public interest in gathering and dissemination of news, including the concerns of the journalist. So it's protecting journalists' rights, once again, in
There you go.
Texas or whatever. When that judge dropped the class action lawsuit, there was a stay on this case, but now it's lifted, so everything's proceeding again. So this document is saying that both parties, Logan and Coffeezilla, both agreed to have certain documents sealed, essentially confidential, so we can't see them. Back in November of 2024, they agreed to this.
Wow.
Plaintiff Logan Paul deposition, this action was taken on September 9th, 2025, so like 3 months ago or whatever. On December 9th, 2025, counsel for defendants emailed plaintiff's counsel to state that defense were challenging the designation of Mr. Paul's deposition transcript as confidential. The court should affirm plaintiff's designation of his deposition transcript as confidential for 3 reasons. Before invoking the protective order's objection procedure, counsel for defendant made no attempt to discuss or resolve the issue before lodging their objection. This blatant failure to comply with the protective order's threshold grounds for rejecting defendant's premature objection to plaintiff's designation. Wait. What's going on here? So obviously plaintiff is Logan Paul, if I keep reading that. Plaintiff has well-placed concerns about Coffeezilla's use of discovery materials from this case for the purposes that have nothing to do with prosecuting or defending the claims at issue in this action. So he's saying Coffee's doing something with the materials they're getting from him, discovery, and throughout the course of
What's he doing with it though? He's just what? Okay.
discovering this case, Coffeezilla has repeatedly provided discovery materials produced by plaintiff to the FBI, together with false and misleading claims about their substance and import, in an unsuccessful effort to try and goad federal law enforcement to prosecute Mr. Paul for wholly imagined crimes. Holy shit. So Logan Paul's team is accusing Coffeezilla of giving over information to FBI.
What? So? What's the big deal? Am I missing something? This is just wild. So Logan's side alleges that Coffeezilla has provided discovery materials to the FBI and that it was done with false or misleading claims to try to get law enforcement involved. That is a wild accusation. Crazy. Now, we'll see. Let's see.
Try to get him arrested.
That's
that
wild.
conduct is not in keeping with the protective order's admonishment that materials produced in the discovery are to be used for litigating this case and preparing for trial. This court knows Coffeezilla has been engaged as an expert witness in a class action suit against plaintiff that also concerns CryptoZoo. Plaintiff has reason to believe that Coffeezilla and his counsel have routinely been sharing discovery materials from this case with class action plaintiff's counsel, something this court expressed concern about when it decided temporarily to stay in this case, and conduct which again constitutes use of discovery materials for purposes other than litigation of the claims and defense in this action. So now they're saying Coffeezilla and his lawyers are sharing these documents with other lawyers in the class action lawsuit against Logan. And apparently they weren't supposed to be doing that. In fact, in a recent YouTube video, the class plaintiff's counsel discussed how helpful the information disclosed in the course of this case has been to their ability to amend their complaint. Yeah, they amend.
So basically, discovery is supposed to be used for this litigation, not to run to law enforcement or assist outside actions. And Logan's side also implies Coffeezilla may be sharing materials with the lawyers in the related class action effort. So the claim is this is just escalating. So it looks like it's just escalating at this point.
Did their complaint, so they refiled the class action lawsuit against them. Defendants never attempted to meet their obligation to confer in good faith about this issue, let alone to articulate any reason why this issue needs to be addressed by the court now. If they had, plaintiff would explain his concerns about defendants' utilization of discovered materials and would have been more willing to discuss the issue in good faith if defendants had identified some pressing need to file a portion of plaintiff's deposition transcript as part of a legitimate effort to seek relevant relief from court. So at some point, Coffeezilla filed a motion to compel, I guess, just more information, more chat logs, more communications Logan had with people. And this is Logan's response to it, saying this shit's privilege, fuck you. essentially, because apparently there's chats with his lawyers in there. Communications and privilege logs are covered by attorney-client privilege. According to defendant, Coffeezilla, these disputed communications cannot be privileged because they include third parties like accountants, insurance agents, and public relations professionals whose presence destroy the privilege. Defendants are again mistaken on the law. They seem to think that whether a third party's presence on a communication destroys the privilege depends entirely on the third party's job title, or on whether the party asserting the privilege subsequently sought discovery from that third party. In actuality, whether a third party's presence on a communication destroys the privilege depends entirely.
This is such a lot of jargon that I'm trying to absorb in real time. Oh, my head.
On the purpose for which the third party was included in the communication. Okay, so they're saying Coffeezilla's lawyers are wrong about the law there. Pretty much, it's not the third party's job title that's in these privilege logs. It's the purpose for which the third party was included. An attorney may employ an accountant for the client's benefit, or vice versa, such that communications between the client, the attorney, and the lawyer will qualify for attorney-client privilege, and they say the case. Court should deny defense motion to compel. Well, this document looks juicy. All right, it's the new year, and it's finally time for you to start that new
Oh no, not
business you've been thinking
Shopify.
about. We all
Guys,
have new ideas.
just for the sake of him. $1 trial for Shopify. But we're going to rewind this. Sorry, dude. You're going to be talking for a while about Shopify.
.com/cuff. That's shopify.com/cuff. Here's your first. This new year with Shopify by your side. So this is the defendant's reply in support of motion for leave for designated responsible third parties. A defendant accused of defamation may designate responsible third parties. Coffeezilla's team is saying they're allowed to do this. They're allowed to say there's other people to blame for this reputational harm. Paul first argues that because Texas law treats each alleged defamatory publication as a single transaction with an independent injury, Coffeezilla cannot plead facts showing the responsible third parties contributed to the specific harm Paul alleges was caused by Coffeezilla's statements. But if Paul was correct, then a defendant could never designate a responsible third party for defamation claim. No authority supports such a rule, and courts have applied Chapter 33 to defamation cases. For example, 85% to defendant, 2 defendants at 5% each, and 5 defendants at 1% each. Paul relies on 2 opinions that don't address responsible third parties at all. While each defamatory statement is a single transaction or occurrence for limitations purposes, that doesn't mean a third party cannot cause or contribute to the harm alleged. A quote-unquote responsible third party is any person who is alleged to have caused or contributed to causing any way the harm for which...
God, so much jargon for him causing harm.
Recovery of damages assault.
Yet none of it. He's just going straight to Coffeezilla, but no one else.
To designate responsible third parties. Coffeezilla has surpassed the standard here. Paul ignores his own allegations that his CryptoZoo partners, Eddie and Jake, caused him to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars through incompetence and deception.
That's true.
Men lied about their resumes, knowledge, experience.
So if you don't know, the people he put in charge of CryptoZoo, their programmers or whatever, apparently didn't know what they were doing. And to Logan Paul's defense, he says he didn't know until it was too late. They lied about on their resumes. They lied about everything that they were capable of doing. So he was a fool, just like everyone else.
And intentions. Greenbaum and Ibanez sabotaged the CryptoZoo project from within and prevented it from ever realizing Paul's vision, is a quote. So they're quoting Paul's own lawsuit here. Paul's pleading also references the case class action and cross claims he brought against Greenbaum and Ibanez. In the class action suit against him, Paul specifically alleged Ibanez and Greenbaum's misconduct not only caused him financial harm, but also significant reputational harm. Paul has judicially admitted these parties caused or contributed to damaging his reputation, the same harm he alleges in his lawsuit. With respect to the media parties, Paul argues Coffeezilla has not shown how their disparagement of Paul was wrongful, claiming mere disparaging statements do not by themselves constitute negligence or violation of any applicable legal standard. Coffee does not allege the media parties made mere disparaging statements. Rather, Coffee's motion details how multiple major media outlets with much larger audiences than Coffee published the same exact statements that Paul alleges were defamatory when made by Coffee, such as...
So why isn't he going after Rolling Stone and BBC? Probably because he knows he'll lose against them and not against Coffeezilla.
That Paul promised to refund people who had bought NFT eggs, but only if they agreed to not sue him. That statement right there is crazy to me. Bro said, hey, I'll refund y'all, but only if you sign this document saying you'll never sue me. Once again, Coffee repeatedly accused Paul of scamming those who bought egg NFTs or Zoo tokens, proclaiming Logan Paul is refunding people he scammed if they promise to stop suing him. Other stories run by the media regarding Paul's prior scandals with other cryptocurrency are akin to Coffee's statements that Paul is a serial scammer. One of 3 statements Paul...
Oh my God. And he hates the fact that people call him a scammer. He hates part-timer. He hates scammer. A serial scammer? Man, If someone ever makes that a sign at a wrestling event, you're getting your butt forever banned at a WWE event. So don't do it.
Paul sued for. If it was defamatory for Coffee to discuss Paul's purported refund offer, as Paul's lawsuit claims, then it was equally defamatory for major media outlets to do so. So Coffee's basically like, I ain't the only one that talked about this. Other media outlets did too with bigger audiences.
Why not sue them?
And if Paul is searching for allegations that such conduct is negligent, he need only look at his own complaint.
Ooh, just look at yourself. You're to blame.
Should be allowed to apportion any purported harm to Paul's reputation between Coffee and other media outlets that purported the same scheme. Coffee timely disclosed the responsible third parties, and that's the gist of that document. All right, so now in this document, Logan Paul's team is salty about the judge denying Logan Paul having access to his communications with Coffeezilla and his editors. The court's denial without prejudice of Paul's motion to compel was plainly based on a notion that there was something inherently inequitable about Paul asking the court to order disclosure of defendants' editorial communications after they were not identified as part of the third-party review of all defendants withheld documents. Okay, if Paul was in fact asking for a do-over of the third-party review, that ruling would be sound, but that is simply not the case here. The third-party review was, by agreement of the parties, far more limited in scope than the court recognized. The reviews were directed only to attempt to identify materials in which Coffee was told that Paul had good faith intentions with respect to CryptoZoo, or materials in which Coffee himself acknowledged as much. Thus, the reviewers were charged with identifying whether the defense were withholding any direct evidence of actual malice. So the judge said, you already had a third-party review these documents. You're just asking for a do-over. Q denied. Logan is saying that third party was extremely limited on what they were looking over. Logan is arguing these are not protected by some, journalist privilege.
Or are they? They should be.
So this document is Coffeezilla's team pissed off that Logan Paul's team is saying his whole deposition is confidential. Like the transcript of it and everything. Paul has designated his entire deposition as confidential, citing the court's confidential and protective order. The order allows the party to designate a confidential only such information the party is in good faith believes in fact is confidential. Paul has not provided and indeed cannot provide any good faith basis to keep his entire deposition confidential, nor has he explained which specific portions of the deposition are actually confidential, as that term is defined in the protective order. In fact, at the same time, Paul is insisting Coffeezilla should not be entitled to publicly discuss or disclose Paul's deposition testimony. Paul is litigating this case and the media. As recently as November 5th, 25, Paul published a video on his YouTube, especially discussing the upcoming trial in this case and his own purported innocence. That video was viewed over 1 million times. Paul cannot meet his burden to justify keeping his entire deposition testimony out of public record. The court should deny Paul's motion. I would love to read this deposition.
Can it become public? It should. For the sake of the people who got betrayed in Coffeezilla.
Yeah, I pay some good money for that. Legal standards for confidentiality. The Fifth Circuit encourages district courts to be ungenerous with their discretion to seal judicial records. The Fifth Circuit has admonished the growing practice of parties agreeing to private discovery and presuming that whatever satisfies the lenient protective order standard will necessarily satisfy the stringent sealing order standard. So the Fifth Circuit is saying that they don't agree with this shit either, and they're just citing that. Paul does not identify any good cause for keeping his entire deposition out of the public record. Paul's motion doesn't even reference the good cause standard. Paul instead raises 3 arguments for confidentiality.
So Logan wants the deposition obviously sealed. Now, the heart of the controversy, Logan tries to designate his entire deposition transcript as confidential. The entire thing. That's bold. Coffee's argument, you can't seal everything. Coffeezilla's side says that that's not how this works. A protective order might allow confidentiality for specific sensitive sections, but sealing judicial records generally requires a stricter showing. In simplest terms, though, you don't get to hide the whole movie because you didn't like the ending. And let's keep going.
None of which have merit. Paul failed to confer, but any conference would be futile. They didn't confer before Coffeezilla raised that objection. Protective order requires parties to try to resolve in good faith on an informal basis, such as production of redacted copies. There's no basis to shield evidence of crimes from law enforcement. Paul next argues he has well-placed concerns that Coffee might disclose his deposition testimony to FBI. Notably, Paul fails to mention that on December 1st, 25, his own counsel sent a detailed letter to the FBI making accusations about Coffeezilla and especially referenced material obtained in discovery in this case, including emails obtained from Coffee and recorded phone calls. Coffee's produced to Paul all his correspondence with law enforcement.
So wait, Logan, so after him saying Coffeezilla shouldn't gone to the FBI, he goes to the FBI too? Yeah, what a hypocrite.
Turns Paul, demonstrating Coffee has not provided any confidential information to law enforcement. Nevertheless, Paul suggests that this is somehow a violation or abuse of the protective order. That was a lot to unpack there. So now Coffee is clapping back, saying Logan's team has reached out to FBI, talking to them, and sent a detailed letter about Coffee. This is messy as shit. I can't believe this shit. As my cat jumps in her litter box to take a shit.
Yo, this Coffeezilla side responded with such a brutal counterpunch. They basically said, hold on. Logan's own counsel sent a detailed letter to the FBI too, referencing materials from Discovery. So now it's not, did the FBI get involved? It's who's trying to control how the FBI sees this. Coffee sides argue something important, though, that sharing information with the law enforcement can be a lawful use and not automatically prohibited, and that sealing documents should require a higher standard than just we designate it to be confidential. Huh. All right. We're almost
Regardless,
done.
disclosing information to FBI is a lawful use of discovery materials and is not prohibited by the protective order. Arguing the protective order does not prohibit such use, Paul claims the order admonishes that materials produced in discovery are to be used for litigating the case. Protective order does not restrict the use of discovery materials preparing for trial.
This is
So
so
Coffee's now
wild.
saying we are allowed to send this to the FBI if we want to. The mere fact that Paul comes off poorly in his deposition is no basis to keep the entire transcript confidential. If, for example, Paul was evasive during his deposition or admitted to making misrepresentations, which would support Coffey's defense of truth, that is no basis to keep his deposition hidden from the public. And if Paul's testimony contains evidence that a crime has been committed, not only would that testimony be confidential under either the protective order or any common law definition of confidential, but it would be contrary to the public interest to shield it from law enforcement. Paul waived confidentiality in any event. Perhaps what is galling about Paul's demand that his entire deposition transcript be kept confidential is the fact that he simultaneously broadcast his own version of events to the public. On November 5th, on the YouTube video They Sued Me and Lost 27 Times, Paul explicitly discusses this case and related class action. Oh my god, look at this. Despite claiming he brought this case to get the truth out there, Paul designated his entire deposition confidential just 6 days later. In fact, Paul's lawyer appeared in the same video high-fiving him upon sharing the news that his class action was dismissed.
Yes.
Paul wants to use the media to prove his innocence and rally his fan base against the reputational damage from the fake narrative that I'm a scammer, while simultaneously asking his court to suppress his own sworn testimony in a case that he decided to bring. In fact, Paul told a friend that a good reason to sue Coffey would be to inflict public humiliation. Meanwhile, Paul accuses Coffey of weaponizing the media. Coffey's last public comment on his lawsuit was July 24 to raise money to fund his defense. Paul and his counsel in contrast have spoken to media twice in just the last few months to accuse Coffey of presenting a fake narrative. Paul's attorney, Jeff Nyman, also provided statements to TMZ regarding the parallel class action.
So this case, where most lawsuits are fought in court, this one's being fought in the court and in public perception thanks to Logan Paul. Coffey's side said that Logan is using his platform to rally fans and shape the narrative. And Logan's side says Coffey is using legal process and discovery to broaden damage outside the case.
Lawsuit. Logan Paul is a public figure who sued Coffey for reported defamation. He's currently using his own widely popular internet platform to claim he wants the truth out there. The court should deny Paul's motion to preserve confidentiality. Blah, blah, blah. You get the picture. Wow. That was a lot.
So they're accusing each other of weaponizing the system, just in different directions. Jeez.
They're saying, hey, bro, you're talking about this shit publicly. We're allowed to have your transcript from your deposition public. That's horse shit, is what Coffey's team is saying. Apparently, this is going to trial in April. I would kill for this to be live streamed. Can you imagine if this is live streamed? I don't know if Texas does that with lawsuits and shit, but holy f***. Hit subscribe. Come.
Wow. So, here's what we can take away with this. Logan wants to fight this publicly, but he kept the sworn testimony private. Coffey wants the record open and wants the jury to consider that the CryptoZoo reputation hit didn't come from one YouTuber alone. Both sides are accusing the other of playing outside the lines. Crazy. And if this really goes to trial, the question isn't just who wins. It's what becomes public and what's going to stay buried. Anyway, that was us going through this long video. Hopefully it didn't go that long. We'll see. Just drop your take in the comments. Should Logan's deposition be public if he's already talking about the case on YouTube? And do you think the responsible third-party strategy is smart, or maybe it's a deflection? Let me know in the comments. Strong brew, no salt behavior. This is the tea drop.